Okay, and action.
With Wes Anderson, obviously, it's a very symmetrical frame. We literally go into the locations and have my camera assistants measure out from the lens to the corners of the room to make sure the camera's placed dead center in the room. Because one of the first things Wes always asks when he shows up on set is, are we in the center here? And I always want to be able to say yes, you know? And so sometimes we have to make modifications to that, but we always start in the center. We have the crosshairs on the viewfinder, and you know, the crosshairs are generally on the person sitting there, you know, in the chair, right? So that's something that with Wes is just kind of a given, and sometimes it changes, but that's always a good starting point. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. I did a movie a few years ago called Love and Mercy with Bill Pohlad. It was about Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. We decided to shoot a lot of the stuff in the studio with Paul Dano playing Brian Wilson. We shot it 16mm documentary style. The only movie I've ever worked on where the director, Bill, when he would rehearse the actors, we weren't allowed to see because he wanted it to be totally documentary. And he even pushed us to kind of, for lack of a better word, do messy frames. You know, he wanted to feel more real, more documentary, not the perfect frame, not the perfect lighting. You know, even rough it up a little bit in the shooting. And at first this goes against my grain. I'm always trying to make it perfect. But then I kind of embraced that style. I think it worked really well for the film. And sometimes I would carry the camera like this with the eyepiece, and I would be, you know, doing this kind of thing. It really gave a feeling of reality to those scenes, and it's one of those things I've gotten so many comments from people who have seen the film and love the film, how much they love those particular sequences in the recording studios. And so it's about as opposite of a Wes Anderson film as you could get. So, you know, I try to get inside the director's head and see what the director feels. You know, do you want your close-ups dead center, or do you want them off to the side? And we kind of together come up with the visual grammar of the film, and once we've kind of established that, we kind of keep to that way of thinking, I think so. I used to work with Paul Feig, and we did Bridesmaids and Vi and The Heat. Everything's improv, and we run 2 cameras on everything. If you and I are having a conversation, we have a camera on you and a camera on me, and the actors are free to improv and do what they want.
I've watched the couple that raised me explode in a van. I watched the woman I love get tossed from a plane and hit by another plane mid-air.
So it's a lot looser style. Wes's style is very controlled, you know, it's very thought out beforehand. Whereas with Paul, it was a much looser kind of thing where he wants the actors to have the freedom to come up with things on their own.
They came and got him.
Who's they? Better be 2 of me. Is it 2 of me?
It was a lady. She was...
I'm a lady. Did I come and get him?
No, it was a different lady. She was nice.
So we have a rough game plan going in, but it always changes. So sometimes you have to think pretty quick on your feet, and after the rehearsal you kind of know roughly where people are going to be. And I find with most actors, once they find where they like to go, they generally go to the same place. Not always, but you know, so once we kind of know where they're going to end up, we find, you know, take a moment, tweak the lighting as best we can, and then we roll 2 cameras. And so it's a whole different, about as opposite of an approach as I have with Wes. When you're blocking with actors, every movie is different, obviously. With Wes, he's so specific about his shots that he blocks the actors. The good news for me is I never have to tell anybody they're not on a mark, because he'll tell them. You know, he's very specific about where he wants people to stand. So, you know, you stand here and you stand here, and you know, it's very much very like that. Sometimes they bring the actors in the morning and they rehearse with the director, and I'll stand there and kind of watch, and I might make a suggestion, or hey, can we move it, instead of being in the corner, can we move it over by the window, or, oh yeah, and generally everyone's very Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm always trying to look selfishly what might work best for me, but I try not to impose myself onto them too much, but if I see that we're heading into trouble there, or if the blocking is such that it's going to create a ton of shots, I might say, well, maybe we could simplify this a little bit, knowing that we don't have time to do 30 shots, because I'm always thinking ahead of how to cover it when I'm watching what they're doing. If we can cover it in a dolly move, and obviously people want cuts and you don't want to be locked into a dolly move, but so all kinds of those thoughts are going through my head. How do we cover this? I'm a big fan of the close-up, not only for cutting, but you want to see the people. So I'm often suggesting close-ups, that seems like. But I'm always thinking, I worked in an editing room for a while, and I won't consider myself an editor, but I love editing, and I understand it to a small degree, and so I try to think editorially as well when we design the shots.